Hey, happy Sunday. Sheriff Matt Aller from Audrain County. And it's about 12:55 in the afternoon. It's Sunday, February 4th, and we're here on the Audrain County Sheriff's Office firing range. Going to do a little gun review for you guys. First time I've ever really tried this, so be patient, bear with me. I don't know how far this will reach, but a little bit about me. I'm the sheriff of Audrain County, Missouri, and I've been a policeman about 29 years. I started my career in 1994, and when I came on, I carried a Smith & Wesson Model 686 357 Magnum revolver. That was kind of the standard of the day. Later, we switched to automatic pistols, and you know, being a cop is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about the law and police work, but I'm also very passionate about firearms. I developed that as time went on, and I've had the really fortunate ability throughout my career to be exposed to and be able to shoot and handle lots of different firearms, lots of different platforms, and it's something that I truly enjoy. Today, we're going to be talking about the Browning High Power, or the Springfield SA-35. The Browning High Power. So, if I do any more of these, one of the things you're going to hear me say a lot is the name John Browning. And the reason for that is because Browning is probably the most prolific firearms designer that ever lived. Glock guys, I'm sorry, but Uncle Gaston didn't do a whole lot for firearms development. The only thing he did was revolutionize the raw materials that we use. He delved off into polymers and things like that, but the design and the function of the firearm, all John Browning, man. So a little bit more about me. I spent my first years in patrol, and later I became a supervisor. I was promoted a couple of times, and I worked in narcotics full-time for 4 years, both undercover and overt. Worked in investigations, criminal investigations, and up into administration. I was a division commander for the patrol division, and here at Audrain County, and later on became the chief deputy. And when my predecessor decided to retire, I ran for office and was fortunate enough to be elected. I'm in my second term, ending my second term, hopefully going into my third one. So, we'll see how all that shakes out, but most people think of a sheriff as somebody that sits at a desk and barks out orders and points and, says, hey, go do this. Well, that's kind of true in some instances, but in my instance, I found it very difficult to get away from doing police work. So I still try to go out and shake it up with patrol guys. I'll go back into the jail. It really, I just have a passion for the job. I currently, even though I'm the sheriff, I'm currently an active canine handler. I have an active police dog. We run calls. As a matter of fact, we ran several calls last week. I'm not above getting called out of bed in the middle of the night and taking whatever action I need to take to do some good, solid police work and help out my staff. So that's a little bit about me, and that'll come into play later on, like my time in narcotics. That certainly exposed me to carrying, qualifying with, and using some non-traditional guns as far as police work is concerned, because you didn't necessarily want, if you're working undercover, you didn't necessarily want to be carrying the Glock cop gun, because everybody knew the cops carried Glocks. You didn't necessarily want to carry your nice 1911, because that's an expensive gun for a doper to be dragging around. So a lot of my stuff in narcotics, one of the guns that I carried was a little pocket 32, and we'll get to that later. Hopefully that's a later episode if this garners enough support. But what we're here to talk about today is the Springfield Armory Model 35. So you can see, to the casual observer, John Browning developed the 1911, and he developed later on the, they called it the Model P-35, but it was later became known as the Browning High Power. You can see the controls are all in the same place. The slide release is in the same place. The manual safety is in the same place. Now, one thing about these guns, they're single action, right? So the hammer has to be cocked before the gun will go off. In the words of Rooster Cogburn, if it ain't loaded and cocked, it don't shoot. So if you're one of those people that look at this gun with the hammer back and think, oh my God, and you have some mental aversion to looking at a gun with a cocked hammer, then this gun's probably not for you. These guns are designed to be carried cocked and what they call cocked and locked, which is hammer cocked and safeties locked upward. But you can see the basic overall design is pretty much the same. The grip angles are the same. When Browning developed the 1911 government model, he developed it to Army specifications, right? So the Army specification was it had to be .45 caliber or larger, and it had to be a semi-automatic pistol. What the Army wanted was something that mimicked or was very close to the capabilities of the .45 Colt that they were trying to get away from in revolvers. So Browning developed this according to the Army specifications, right? So it's .45 ACP caliber. He developed the gun and the caliber. The grip safety, there's a safety here. So when you turn off the thumb safety, if this grip safety is not pushed in, the gun will not fire. So this was an afterthought by the U.S. Army. They wanted to make sure somebody's hand was wrapped around this before it would go off. So, I mean, if you're not holding the grip safety, the gun will not go off. So that was an afterthought, not anything Browning came up with. That was an Army thing. The similarities between the Browning High Power and the 1911 are pretty much cosmetic. The real differences are internal, and you're going to have to bear with me while I talk and take these guns apart, because most of what we're going to talk about is internal. But so Browning, you have to understand, Browning was not a firearms manufacturer. He did not have the capability of manufacturing in large-scale firearms. He was a designer. So once the 1911 was developed, he sold the patent to Colt so they could mass produce that for the U.S. government. So, you know, Browning Firearms Company was never a large manufacturer of firearms. Later, Browning developed a relationship with a company called Fabrique Nationale in Belgium, and that's where a lot of Browning's designs were put into production. So you hear lots of folks talk about FN Herstal. It's Fabrique Nationale in Herstal, Belgium. So the Browning High Power, if anybody knows the kind of stuff that Browning did before the government model, he mainly developed smaller caliber pocket pistols, like the 1903 model, which was in .32 ACP and things like that. The model 1911 that he developed for the U.S. government in .45 caliber was not something of his own making. That was something that was demanded by the U.S. Army. Browning was typically into smaller caliber pistols, a lot of .32 stuff, and 9mm later on, which is where the high power came in. After the 1911, Browning set out to make what he thought was a better single-action pistol. And he died in 1926, and the Browning High Power was not released until 1935. So Browning had the basic design, and then he passed away, and the design sat on the shelf until a designer at FN Herstal by the name of Saev finished the design and put it to market. So we think of the 1911 as the gun that won 2 world wars, but the Browning High Power was in service for many, many countries during World War II and even afterward. I believe the British SAS used it until probably the late 90s, when more modern lightweight stuff came out. So it is absolutely a firearm that is combat proven, and it's battle proven. It saw its way into a lot of skirmishes and a lot of battles, and it was very highly regarded by those that had it. So we'll get to some of the things that Browning changed in the high power that he felt was better than the 1911, and also things that would not infringe on Colt's patent. So you see here on the 1911, the feed ramp is part of the frame. It's built into the frame, whereas on the high power, the feed ramp is actually a part of the back side of the barrel. You can see here on the 1911 barrel, there's no feed ramp, it's just a barrel. On the high power, there's a feed ramp there that feeds the bullet up into the firing chamber. The other big thing was Browning designed the 1911 with a swinging link. That's how the gun unlocks. So when it's locked, that link is down. And as the gun recoils, that link goes up, allows the barrel to come down, and that's how the slide unlocks from these locking lugs, and then allows the slide to go back to cycle the action. With the high power, Browning designed what's called the tilting barrel. So there was just a notch cut here, and inside the frame of the gun, there's a bar that notch rode on, and then as the barrel went back in recoil, it would slide down on that notch and unlock these locking lugs from the slide, allow the slide to go back and cycle the action. So it dropped it just enough to unlock it. So this is called the short action locked breech recoil system. Browning developed that, and so we can look at a modern Glock pistol for you Glock guys. You'll notice that same diagonal notch is cut in this barrel. You know, this is nothing. This is a John Browning design, and it's used in virtually every locked breech, semi-automatic, recoil-operated pistol that is on the face of the earth today, unless it's a straight blowback design, which is typically just for smaller, low-pressure calibers. Some of the 380s, 32 ACP, things like that. The reason Browning designed this is because the pressures, the operating pressures in these modern, quote unquote, modern cartridges were high enough that if you just did a straight blowback design, there would be too much pressure in the chamber to safely open the breech and eject the shell. It would blow the shell casing to pieces, which means the person to your right would be getting hit with pieces of metal, because the pressure was too high in the chamber to open that chamber up and try to allow that brass to get out. So Browning had to come up with a way to delay that breech from opening and make sure that breech stayed locked while those pressures were high. So the design of the high power over the 1911 is pretty much the gold standard of how guns lock up today, still today. And that was something that's, we're 100 years into that design now. That being said, I walked into one of my local gun shops. So I have the very, very fortunate blessing to be the sheriff for the county that Graf's Reloading Supercenter's in. Most anybody that's ordered anything over the internet gun related probably has heard the name Graf and Sons. Marge Graf is the owner. Super nice lady. I try to talk to her every chance I get, but she lives in Audrain County here, local, and Graf and Sons is local to me. So if this goes further and we do another episode, I'm sure you'll hear other local gun shops, because I truly believe in shopping local and trying to do local business. Very seldom do I do anything non-local. So I walked into Graf and Sons. I'm in there about once a week, trying to talk to Marge or just kind of seeing what's shaking. They probably have 300 or 400 guns on the shelf any one given time, and so if I'm in there often enough, it kind of clicks in my mind what's there. Last week, one day, I walked in there, and as I hadn't even made it to the pistol case yet. I looked over and went, well, that's a Browning high power. Where'd that come from? Somebody must have traded that in. So I immediately asked either Matt or Cody, I don't remember which, said, hey, let me see that Browning high power. And they pulled it out, and I quickly realized that it was a new production Springfield, which Springfield announced this, I think, 2 years ago, that they were going to start making this gun again. But, I mean, there were people on waiting lists for a year or better to try to get their hands on one, and one finally showed up there. I went back the very next day and bought it. I've owned a couple of Browning high powers in my career, or in my life, actually. But they're some of the guns that I regret turning loose of. They're just very, very nice, elegant guns. They shoot well, they handle well. But of course, you know, as a young man, when the next best thing came along, you know, I had to get rid of something to go get it. You know, back when I started as a deputy, I think I made $19,000 or $20,000 a year. So, you know, money was one of those things where I just didn't have a giant surplus of it to be able to go out and, you know, buy the latest, greatest thing that came up. But a little bit about it, the ejection port looks small. A lot of the 1911 guns and other single-action guns, these ejection ports have been opened up quite a bit to improve reliability. Springfield did not do that with this. One of the things you'll notice that they did do, though, or I noticed, John Browning was not known for putting generous sights on guns when he designed them. The sights were typically a very small little thing in the front and a little piece of stamp metal in the back, and they were kind of hard to pick up. But you can notice here that Springfield put the U-notch on the back sight and a nice white dot on the front sight. They're very easy to pick up. One of the other things Springfield did, this ring hammer. I have a very high grip, you can see, and the old high powers had a long spur on the hammer, and I would get what's called hammer bite. Every high power I've ever owned, I've had to retrofit with a ring hammer to keep, because it'll make you bleed and it hurts. So the ring hammer is standard on the Springfield copy of the high power. The other thing they did was they beveled the magazine well here. You can see there's a little bit of beveling, so there's no sharp edges. So when the magazine goes in, it funnels its way in. The original high power did not have that. The magazine well was flat and square, so sometimes when you went to load a magazine into it, it would catch, like the feed lips on the magazine would catch on that sharp corner and kind of pose a problem getting the magazine into the well. So that is some of the things that they took care of as far as just really basic stuff that they changed to make it overall a better gun than the original high power. Grips are walnut. Finish, you know, I'm a guy that I am a traditional wood and steel guy, right? I like wood and steel. Plastic guns are cool, but this is craftsmanship. The grip panels are walnut, but the finish is kind of a matte blue. It's not that real deep, rich blue like you used to see on Browning firearms. And I don't know what that's going to turn into over time with use. We'll have to see. One of the other things that Browning changed in the design was an external extractor. You can see the extractor on the side of the slide, whereas with the 1911, the extractor was internal. It went back down from the back side of the slide and went in and had the extractor claw, and those had to be tuned ever so often. So the 1911 is actually kind of a high maintenance gun. As far as the design, it was great at the time. Now, don't get me wrong, this Kimber 1911, I carry it to work every single day, and it has been flawless. The round count on that gun's probably somewhere around 7,000-ish. Been an absolutely fabulous gun for me. The design, it fits my hand well. I shoot it well. and it's just been overall great. I think I've carried it for probably going on 15 years now. Although, once I have enough range time with the high power, the 1911 is an 8-round gun. You get 8 rounds of 45 ACP. With the high power, with the new Springfield, the original high power was 13 rounds. The Springfield is 15, and there are companies making 17-round magazines for it. So, there's an argument to be made that 17 rounds of 9mm is better than 9 rounds of 45. But here's my philosophy, folks. At the end of the day, the best gun that you can possibly have in a gunfight is the one you have with you, and know how to use it. Which is something that's appealing to me with the high power, in that the controls are all the same. It's very intuitive for me to find the thumb safety. The trigger pull is similar, but not the same. They're two different principles. The 1911, the trigger goes straight back through the frame. This one, it has the standard pivoting trigger. The trigger pivots on a pin, where the 1911 is on a bow that goes back through the frame, and it runs straight back and forth. So, it's we're a little, we're starting to split hairs, but I've shot 45 rounds through this gun just to make sure it functions okay. But I think what we're going to do is, today it's kind of breezy, so paper targets are probably out. But I think we're going to shoot some steel. So bear with me while I rearrange the camera and see if we can get some shots of a few magazines full on steel here at the range. I will tell you that as a sheriff, gun guys are going to look at this and go, "Oh, dude." As a sheriff, 90% of what I do is either sitting at a desk or driving a car, and as such, I wear a shoulder holster 95% of the time, simply because I can get to a gun while I'm sitting down. I know a lot of I was a firearms instructor, so I know a lot of instructors don't like to see these things on the range. I do not wear it on the range to qualify. I wear a hip holster or a gun belt. But before you guys start burning me to the ground over having a shoulder holster, after 29 years of wearing a uniform and a gun belt, my back's kind of fried, and it's just much easier for me to get to a gun if I need to while I'm sitting down, because there are all kinds of instances where people walk into police stations and sheriff's offices and start shooting the place up and carrying on, and then while I'm driving in a car, that takes its toll on your back. If you're a cop and you got some time on and you've been wearing a gun belt, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this has nothing to do with being cool. It has nothing to do with anything. It's not tactical. It's not anything other than it keeps me in a gun and 2 spare magazines in a way that, number one, I can get to it, and number two, it's a little less painful. So with that being said, I'm going to shift this camera around and see if we can put 2 rounds on steel to where you guys can see what's going on. The good news about steel is, rather than paper, is that you get some immediate feedback. You can hear the steel ring. You know whether or not you hit. The steel may fall. It may not fall. That steel's pretty old. Some of it's rusty. But we'll go out and see if we can ring some. All right. So I can get that adjusted a little better. All the magazines seem to drop free. All of that ammunition was a variation, a mix of hollow point ammunition that I had laying around the house from who knows when. It was just a conglomeration of stuff that I stuck in there. Some of it was Hornady, some of it was, the bullet profile was different. It was a Golden Saber or Spear bonded ammunition. So I wanted to try all kinds of different defensive ammunition. I'm sure it'll run ball ammo. But that was 46 rounds. I think I threw a couple. 15 yards on a pepper popper silhouette. Recoil was completely manageable. My wife actually carries a gun for a living, and I think my wife could probably run that gun fairly well. And she's very small statured. So, if you're recoil sensitive, this probably ain't going to bug you. It's actually very, very pleasant to shoot. But again, if you've got an aversion to carrying a gun with a hammer cocked, this ain't the gun for you. But the function was fine. You guys saw no malfunctions in 45 rounds of rapid fire, and at 15 yards, probably with 45 or so, 43 of those rounds at rapid fire, all of them found some steel. And that steel is smaller than a man, so plenty good enough for combat. You know, we could sit here and bench this gun and see at the end of the day how accurate it is, but word to the wise, when it comes down to using a handgun, unless you're using it for competition, if you're using it strictly for protection or defense, hitting a man at 15 yards rapid fire consistently is pretty much where you need to be. If this gun shoots 1 inch at 25 off a sandbag, I don't know that that's much different than shooting 2 inches at 25 off a sandbag when what you're looking for is a combat firearm. So just overall, at the end of the day, I really like the gun. Some more range time with it, and I will probably be carrying this to work. They still make duty holsters for it. There again, 15 years or so with my 1911, and I have found something that I think I like better and gives me more bullets. So at the end of the day, it's a solid gun. I think MSRP on this gun, manufacturer suggested retails about $7.99, I think. Real world money, you can probably find one for about $7, I'm guessing. So not super cheap, but not super high dollar either. A lot of nice 1911 guns are going to cost you $1,100-$1,200 real world money. So, if you're in the mood for a traditional high capacity single action 9mm pistol, I'd say you'd have a hard time going wrong with this. Remains to be seen what the finish does. The finish is the only thing I have a concern about. The finish seems to be kind of soft. It's not that nice rust blue like we typically see on a lot of Browning guns. But, when you look at my 1911, there's a lot of wear on that gun. After 15 years, I buy guns to use. I don't buy them to sit in safes and be safe queens. This thing looks like it's been drugged behind a pickup truck and used for a fence stretcher. So, the finish really doesn't bother me as much as the function of the gun and whether or not it's going to be dependable and reliable. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll try to figure out how to get this on YouTube, and hopefully it'll reach further than Audrain County, and maybe somebody will get some good use out of it. But anyway, from East Central Missouri, have a wonderful day.